Wildfires. Now, we're gonna get to a topic that has been around since the beginning of civilization itself. Now, wildfires are a thing that aren't really something that borderlines on the whole agenda of conspiracies, or even on the agenda of whether they exist or not, or whether they hold a real life threat or not. Bottom line is, they're extremely dangerous, they're extremely active. Until date, we experience some horrific wildfires that, well, in all honesty, should have and could have been avoided if the right steps would have been taken a long, long time ago. And even today, the fact that we're ignoring so much when it comes to wildfires is just blatantly ignorant in terms of being completely prone to being blindsided when stuff actually starts to get out of hand. Now, wildfires have been a thing since the beginning of terrestrial plants. So the first fossilized charcoals were carbon dated, and it turns out that the oldest ones that were found were around 420 million years old. That means that the very first trails of civilization, the very first trails of plants, when they were a thing, so were wildfires. They were naturally occurring causes that would light things on fire and have humongous blazes throughout. So wildfires are a thing that extended to lengths beyond our comprehension today. It's just that today they're far more prominent because of the whole human factor. It's got huge implications on climate change, like ginormous implications on climate change. And what's funny is, one of the only ways to control a wildfire is by controlled burns, is by burning away the fuel that the fire would eventually get to sustain itself and bridge the gap between you and the fire. That's what firefighters do across the globe. And it is a tried and tested and proven technique. It works every single time. Is it feasible? Not really. Burning more things to stop burning things? I don't get it. As a matter of fact, wildfires have been so rampant and so abundant in the concept of humanity itself that while we are able to keep records, we've been able to track down 16 million acres burnt, 8.5 million acres burnt, 7.5 million acres burnt. The bushfires, the Northwestern Territory fires, as well as the Siberia wildfires, in collective order, as I mentioned earlier. They've burnt a huge chunk of the earth. And till date, it's a fact that if you Google wherever you are right now about active wildfires, you're sure to come across at least 5 at any given time. There is not one moment where some portion of the earth is not raging in a blaze. What does that have to say about what the future holds for naturally occurring climate? What does that have to say when it comes to naturally occurring change? We gotta understand that there is more comprehension involved rather than demanding action. You need to understand what you demand before you demand it. Wildfires and natural phenomena are no joke, and we all know that. But a lack of education makes everybody susceptible to the worst outcomes in such scenarios. Consulting back to the research, it's got ginormous health effects. Every wildfire would put out an enormous amount of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, SUD, particulate matter, organic matter, nitrogen oxides, so many chemicals, because it's gonna burn through so much stuff that is made with so many chemicals that upon experiencing those extreme temperatures are prone to either get airborne, completely evaporate, or turn into a very toxic residue that's left behind, making everything that's left behind even more dangerous to come in contact with once the blaze is supposedly passed through the area. Once it's burnt through, it's gonna continue to go, but what it's burnt through is still not good to be involved in salvaging something from. That is why whenever there's a wildfire and there's an evacuation order in place, even when the blaze crosses that area, you are not allowed to go back just yet until the authorities can go and make sure as to is there anything that would be a contaminating agent. We need to understand that as Indians, we are not completely away from these hassles as well. We experience wildfires every single year. But just because the media finds everything else that is much more glamorous to cover, we never hear about it. And whose fault is that? There are articles out there, there are people who are covering these things. Social media is everywhere. Today, everyone in India has a smartphone. Everyone knows what making a video is like. When they see a wildfire raging in their backyard, looking at the hills that were once lush green, covered in raging flames, and they make that video and they put it on social media, it tends to be your responsibility as a consumer of said media to even look at the stuff that they don't cover, to understand that there is weight to that issue as well, to understand that you ignoring that issue and rather concentrating on a much more mainstream content, you're not helping anyone. As a matter of fact, you're being ignorant to the fact that someone might just benefit from you taking that 1 minute and sharing a catastrophic event that is going on in their backyard that might burn the house down that they've been living in their entire life. Ever thought about what you would do if your neighborhood caught on fire and it burnt your house down to a crisp? What would happen next? What would you do? No one knows the answer because there is no right answer to that. The point of the matter is that you need to understand that there are issues that are prevalent. Instead of just being like, oh, this is not in our neck of the woods and we don't care about it. Yes, we do care about it. In 2016, the Uttarakhand wildfires, they burnt through Jim Corbett National Park. They burnt through Rajaji Tiger National Park. It's been something that's affecting one of the worst affected species in India. Tigers, there was a huge campaign launched to save the tiger. The tiger needs our help. Save it. Save it from being hunted. Save it from poachers. Save it by not destroying its natural habitats. All of that came into play. And then when wildfires burn through their houses, we are mum. Why? Because it's not a meme on the internet? Because it's not some funny video on YouTube that you can watch and laugh and joke about? I don't get it, alright? To be educated about certain things that need you to be educated about is very essential. And you turning a blind eye to it makes no good to nobody. Not you, not the person watching your content, neither to the person who you share your content with. Your friend circle, your group discussions. If you don't talk about stuff that requires global attention, I don't know what you are doing, but whatever it is, it's wrong. Because you aren't playing your part in what it means to be a global citizen. This is about humanity, first and foremost. It's not about, oh, this is that and that is separate from this, so let's play the political card and all that jargon. Let's segregate us from that jargon just because it's not in our neck of the woods. Oh, it's not our immediate hassle. Why do we have to give a crap about it right now? I'll tell you why you have to give a crap about it right now. Because when you do give a crap about stuff, you create a communal harmony. You create an environment in which when you need help, 3 other people will go out of their way to help you. But if you only stick to your guns and only give a crap about what you are going through and about how it affects you or how it doesn't, guess what? When the time comes for you to go through something in life, you're going to be the only one standing there with no one to then ask for help from. Who's going to go out of their way and why would they? Because when they needed it, did you? Now you might get lucky and they might not be that way. They might understand that there has to be someone who takes the first step. But why can't that person be you? I'm just saying. If we look at the campaigns that have been existent throughout history, Smokey the Bear in the United States, the biggest campaign that ever ran. He was on t-shirts, mugs, hats, everywhere. If you went camping in the United States back in the day, you knew who Smokey the Bear was. And why? Because he educated you on the context of what wildfires were, how they could spontaneously get started by sheer ignorance or by carelessness or how you can do your active part to spot a wildfire, and if you do, how do you report it to the right authorities who can then take the right steps to save a bunch of people's assets, lives. You never know what you might be saving, because you never know the scale of the fire that it might grow to. There's something known as a fire tornado. Have you ever imagined that? A tornado of fire? And you think you can hide in your basement with a tornado of fire above you? That's not how it works. Throughout history, we have seen the evolution of technology play a ginormous role in the benefit of human nature itself, in the benefit of humankind itself. And technology in today's realm, with NASA's climate technology in place, climate surveillance technologies in place, with satellites everywhere scanning the earth 24/7, we are on top of most of the data that we are getting. And what is the whole point of getting this data, salvaging this information? It's to be preemptive. It's to be able to warn those people who are going to be directly affected by something, by this raging storm, and tell them that, listen, this is your time to get out while you can get out. To save what you can save, so when this comes out of nowhere, according to you, if you were not even informed about it, you couldn't save nothing. You might even lose your own life. Whereas that brief moment of preemptive warning is all that's needed sometimes. It's huge in terms of what it can mean for someone to be able to have the opportunity to save their life, to save whatever they might have made for themselves over the years. It makes a huge difference to be able to have a little bit of control in times like these when you literally have no control. They're called acts of God for what? Because humans have no way in doing anything about them as of now. There are wildfires in regions of the world where people and governments go out of their way to suppress it. China experiences one of the largest number of wildfires every single year. Do you ever hear about it? No, you don't. North Korea experiences wildfires a lot. Russia experiences wildfires a lot. Luckily about Russia, yeah, we do hear about it. We hear about the Siberian wildfires. We hear about the Arctic Circle thawing. We hear about ancient permafrost that is thawing. All of this is coming out of Russia. But you can't ignore the fact that this is a global occurrence. This is not just limited to the northeast regions or the southeast regions of the globe. You can't do that. It's the entirety of the globe that suffers from this. As a matter of fact, people use fires for some of the most absurd things, and they believe that a fire can easily be put out when it can't. That's the whole cost of being uneducated about what you're doing. People use fire to scare off predators when they believe their herds might get attacked by some kind of predator. Shepherds do that more often than not. They'll use flaming torches. They'll just set everything ablaze. And they'll hope that the predator gets scared away. Sure enough, the predator does get scared away because it's a flame. But then again, the amount of fire that rises to cannot be just ignored. Cannot be something that you would believe would die out on its own, because it won't. It will burn through the entire land, and then what? What would your sheep then graze upon if you set everything ablaze? It's that little brief moment of not thinking about what are the consequences of my actions when I'm doing this, is what this is all about. Arson is the number one cause of wildfires in the world. Look it up. The human element is just weird, because some people just want to watch the world burn, and they will go out of their way just to do that. And oftentimes than not, the only element that is involved in wildfires is humans. In this particular position, if a human wasn't involved in any way, shape or form, it probably wouldn't have turned into the scale of the wildfire that it did. So many times has that happened. And by no means am I saying that that is the only way wildfires have burnt through huge chunks of land in the past. Of course not. They are naturally occurring and they can be naturally started. But if you look up recently, the number one cause of wildfires today is arson, and that is just not acceptable. In the end, I'd just like to say that educate yourself about wildfires. Educate everyone you know about wildfires. If you need to, share this video with them so they know that it is about being in the know. It is about educating yourself in what to do and what not to do. About what you can do to help those who are directly being affected, and what you can do in your own neck of the woods to ensure that it doesn't ever come down to the point where your own house might burn down someday. We are living in tough times. Things might get better. Things might take longer to get better than we anticipated initially. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the troubles that the entire world was going through before this hit are all gone. Wildfires, even today, can displace thousands, if not millions, from their homes in the middle of a pandemic. Where do you think those who get displaced from these incidences go? How do they find shelter while we are sitting in our own houses, cribbing about not being able to go out? There's a difference. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.